Hey guys, back at it again, and this time we got a review for Black Phone 2.
Nothing burns like the cold.
Yes, back at it again finally. Kind of a week off as far as reviews go. Did not go to see Tron Ares, but from what I've heard I didn't miss a whole lot, but maybe I'll see it at some point. But as far as Black Phone 2 goes, the sequel to obviously Black Phone, Scott Derickson is back again. Mason Thames as Finney is back again. Madeline McGraw as Gwen is back again. And obviously Ethan Hawke is back as the Grabber. So continue that story. The difference is the Grabber is back as like this ghost. He is no longer alive. We get more of his backstory. I mean, I'll say going into this movie, I was very excited. This is one of the most anticipated of the year. I was more of the camp of like, I think you can do a sequel, and if you do it well, the ghost thing, I was like, but I was like, it could work really well. Some of the trailers I thought looked really good. I was like, okay, let's see what they got here. And like I said, in this movie they give more of the backstory. You continue to follow Gwen and Finney. Now they go to this different location that their mom actually went to, and they're trying to figure out how these kids died, essentially. And let's start off with the pros. But I will say, before we get to the pros, didn't love this movie. As you probably saw on my short, definitely disappointing for me. But it has some good to it, so we'll start with the pros. I thought the setting was awesome, and I want more of this type of setting, that wintry, snow setting. This is set in Colorado. It adds an element to it. This is how I want a Friday movie to be, personally. Like, I think that would be freaking awesome. A theatrical Friday movie. So yeah, I was like, man, this setting is awesome from the trailers. In the movie itself, it is awesome. It's some of the best things about this movie, some of the shots. I still think a lot of the style Scott Derickson still nails. There's also some of the style that's kind of in my negatives, just because I felt it was a bit jarring at times. But I felt like they do a lot of nightmares type stuff in there, dream type stuff, which I'll say actually gets me excited for if Scott Derickson got named for an Nightmare on Elm Street movie. There's some things that would make me nervous, but there's some things that would really excite me. I think he does certain things that he, like with the Nightmare World, that he could do really well. But there's some things where I'm like, we could have went deeper, we could have done more, and we just didn't go there. And I also just, as we'll get to, but yeah, setting-wise, really cool. It was cool to see the characters come back. The characters you got to really bond with previously. There's some emotional moments that do work in this film that if you enjoy the characters from the first movie, you really dug in the second movie. And I thought that worked really well. Yeah, I would say the biggest positive is the setting and just how it's filmed. And I think portions of this is done really well, and I like I said, I thought the Nightmare stuff was really interesting. I thought they did a good job with the Gwen character as we go deeper into what her gift is that was passed down by her mom, and I thought that was really cool. And they did explain some stuff we'll get into the negatives. They kind of, to me, over-explain on certain areas, but I think this movie does a good job of bringing back some of the characters and getting you back into that world. But negatives. As negatives go, unfortunately, I am not a big fan of what they did with the Grabber for the most part in this movie. And one positive I'll say before we get officially in the negatives, there was a scene with the Grabber as like an ice skater thing. I thought that was a really good scene, kind of terrifying image. But anyways, negatives. Most part, the Grabber does not work in this film for me. I don't really find him that scary as like I did in the first movie. He almost talks too much to where it almost like it takes away from some of how scary he is. And a lot of the scenes from the original, you would pause on a moment where it was so still and you could just feel, and the fear comes from just nothing being done. And I feel like they try that sometimes in this movie and it never works. And problem with some of the Grabbers dialogue, it's even worse dialogue. The dialogue is not good in this movie, and it's kind of, like, at times anyways, it's kind of crazy because some of the Gwen dialogue lines are horrendous. They really take you out of the movie. There's some jokes that I'm like, what? And then there's some family moments where they would bring up something about another family member, and I'm like, whoa. I get we're trying to have a family moment here, but it almost felt like it didn't truly fit. It just felt jarring and out of place, and then there would be some weird joke that didn't land at all. There's just a lot of bad dialogue in this movie. I couldn't really believe it because I just don't remember the first one having crappy dialogue, and it just took me out of the movie a lot. What I mentioned earlier about the Nightmare stuff, or even some of the style, the Nightmare stuff, there's a certain style they work with that I think works, but also comes off a bit jarring at times. But that didn't bother me as much as some of the stuff, some of the plot and stuff is kind of confusing. They don't really, to me, some things don't really connect. They just kind of just, and there's also a lot of dialogue that it over-explains shit constantly, which is I'm not a fan of. I don't need to be told every little thing. Let us figure it out as an audience a little bit, and that kind of stuff really annoyed me. The biggest thing, this movie's not scary. It's just, there's really nothing scary about this movie. It doesn't build tension all that well. Like I said before, the grabber is not scary. It just, even before, it takes a while before we even get to the grabber, but even before that, none of those scenes, the jump scare scenes, were not done that well. There might have been one scene that got me a little bit, but it just caught me off guard a little bit, but other than that, most of the scenes were just, I was like, wow, the first movie was great with tension, really scary, and I just thought it was this movie just doesn't land in that category at all, and I was just like, wow. What happened from the first movie to this movie? And while I was excited for a second movie, it then made me realize, I guess those people were right. Maybe there wasn't enough story here. We don't really need to go super in depth about the grabber. That's what happens when you tend to ruin certain horror icons like that. I wouldn't put the grabber in a horror icon through one or two movies, especially after the second one. You kind of over-explain, so either over-explain stuff or you kind of ruin the mystique, the scariness of that character, kind of like they did, with a Rob Zombie, even though I would say that might be as scary as Michael's been just because how violent it is, but with that being said, in this case, it just, adding some of that stuff, just didn't work for me. And they just over-explain stuff non-stop in this movie. And it's just, there's really a scene where all the characters come together. It's in wherever the heck they're at. And they just it's just them talking about figuring out stuff. And the dialogue is basically used to explain to the audience. Even though I feel like the audience could have got there without all this over-explaining through dialogue. But, I digress. But yeah, unfortunately this movie is just really disappointing for me. I really wanted to like or love this film. The first one is awesome. The first one was such a surprise. So I was just hoping this movie would at least be somewhat good. And it just... It's not even a movie I would really want to go back to. It would almost, I hope, there's almost part of me that's it doesn't really exist. Unfortunately, it's not bad. It's definitely not bad, but it just happened, and that's kind of the most. That might be worse than being bad. Honestly, I don't know. Letter grade wise, I guess letter grade wise, I'm gonna go with a C, which sucks. Because one of my most anticipated of the year, it's been a rough run of movies recently outside of like one battle after another. So hopefully it gets better. But so yeah, guys, we do have some movies coming out this weekend. We got the new Bruce Springsteen movie, which I more than likely will be seeing because I am a big fan of Jeremy Allen White. They have the new Eli Roth movie. We'll see on that. I know there's a romantic comedy, I think, called Regretting You or something of that nature. I don't know. I'll put it down. If I got that name wrong, oh well. But yeah, so we got those three potential movies. We'll see what I get to see. I definitely will be seeing the new Bruce Springsteen movie and the new Eli Roth movie. Those are guarantees. Well, I shouldn't say guarantees, but they feel likely. Anyways, guys, thank you as always, and I will see you next time.